Hey guys, remember when I did the spare bedroom flooring and I undercut the baseboard trim, but I said I left a lot of holes because I couldn't get the wood from underneath the trim? Well, this is the video to show you how to cover up the holes left in that trim with either quarter rounds or what I have is a shoe trim. Also, I'm going to show you how to apply returns to the edges of your trim. So I've measured this wall here. And it is the longest wall in the room without any interruptions such as a doorway or closet. Now the shoe trim that I bought is from Home Depot. They're 16 foot long. And shoe trim is a little bit different from quarter rounds because quarter rounds usually are the same measurement on the back and the bottom. Well, shoe trim is a little bit more narrow on the bottom. I like the shoe trim because it took up less space and it was less expensive. To know which angle you're going to cut, you got to know which side of the room you're going to start on. So if you're starting inside of a room, you're going to start in the right hand corner, you need to cut your angle down to the left. So what you saw me do here was start on the right hand side and cut down to the left. Now you'll reverse those instructions for the left hand corner of your room. You're going to cut down to the right. So remember that throughout this project. If you're working on the inside of a room, whatever corner you're going to start from, you cut down into the opposite direction. So for left side of the room, cut down to the right. For the right side of the room, cut down into the left. And all of the little pieces that you have left over, all your little scrap pieces, keep those because you may need those later on in your project. If you're thinking of buying a brad nailer at your local big box hardware store, don't. Go to Harbor Freight and get one of these electric brad nailers. They cost about $22 and they usually have a coupon for it. Make sure you apply as much pressure as possible when getting ready to nail the brad into the wall. Because they're short, if you don't apply enough pressure, the only thing the nail is going to go through is the trim and not the wall. You need it to go all the way through. Unfortunately, that longest wall, I cut about 3/8 of an inch too short. But that is not going to be a problem. We're going to fix that really easily. This is one of the scrap pieces that I held on to. We're going to use this to fill in that little bit of gap that goes in the left hand corner. So we're just going to cut 3/8 of an inch down and to the right to fit into that left angled corner. And voila, here we have the little angled piece. Yes, both sides are going down and to the right because again, we're just going to use it as an extension to what we cut too short. I don't know why I said we. I mean, I'm the one who cut it short. But anyway, you're going to use Titebond or some other wood glue to attach it into that short shoe trim piece. And this Titebond actually has a pretty quick tack to it. It dries pretty solid within a minute or two. So you saw there with the extension attached, and here is the next longest wall in that room, which I cut the trim too long. So that's not going to be a problem either. We'll go back out there and fix it by cutting off just a very small sliver at a time to make sure that we don't cut it too short. And these are the two pieces that I ended up cutting off to make it fit into that corner. It's highly likely that during your project you're going to run into a doorstop, but getting around this little obstacle is very easy. Make small markings on the trim around where the doorstop would be. If you don't have a tool that can bore a semicircle or a hole through wood, you're going to need to just gently carve out this area. And carve a little bit at a time because your doorstop may not be as far down on the wall as you think. So this probably took me about 10 minutes to chisel down into about that much of the trim, which is basically halfway through. This short piece of shoe trim is actually going to be stopping at the corner of my closet doors. So we don't want to leave the edge at an angle like this because it can damage it if something runs into it, or you can stub your toe and get hurt. So as you see, it's cut down and to the right. Now all the little pieces that you've saved are not going to work for the return for this piece. These are all pieces that are left over from cutting trim for the inside of a room. If you were cutting, say, down the hallway where your angles are going to be a little bit different, they'll work for returns there. So all those little pieces that you've saved, if you're doing another room, keep those in a baggie. In order to get a return for this short shoe trim, we're going to have to cut a piece from the same end, which will be on the right end, but in the opposite angle. So it's a right side aiming down to the right. We need a right end aiming down and to the left. So I'm using this little piece of scrap. And again, I'm going to be cutting down and to the left in order to make the return. When you're cutting a piece of scrap to make a return, you want to make sure that the very top of the scrap lines up with the angle of your miter box. If you don't make sure that it lines up with your miter box angle, you're going to cut too much of the wood off and it's not going to lay flush to the wall. So again, make sure that the top of the trim lines up at the exact angle of your miter box, whether you're cutting to the right or to the left. Here's a close-up of that corner lining up exactly with that angle. After getting that little return cut off from that scrap piece, you'll see that they are aiming in different directions, one to the right and one to the left. But when we combine them, it makes a very clean, nice rounded edge so that you don't stub your toe, so that the trim is not damaged. And all you're going to do is put just a dab of Titebond on the end of either the return or your trim and hold them together for about 30 seconds so they can adhere. Then you come up with this beautiful, nice, professional looking return on the edge of your trim. Here's a look at the finished project with the shoe trim fully attached to the entire room, including returns. And remember, I put this down to cover up all the gouges that I put in the existing baseboard trim. But you don't have to do this if you are putting down new flooring. You can do this on the existing flooring that you have, and you don't have to do it to cover up any mistakes that you may have made. Applying this to the flooring that you already have will give the room a completely different look. And I'm a beginner at this. I've never done this before, never had any formal training. I've never actually seen anybody do it. I read one blog on how to do it, and I kind of just put my mind to it. But it's really easy. You just need time, opportunity, and the right tools. So go for it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for viewing, you guys.